They thought that sleep was rest, but it was a silent battle against the deadly ice. How does a human sleep when the cold becomes stronger than anything?
As for you, before we begin this deep and calm journey, leave your mark on our channel by hitting the subscribe and like buttons so you can easily find our content next time. And now, take a deep breath, close your eyes, lie down, and let sleep creep in.
In the ancient winter nights, the air was cruel like knives, and the snow covers the earth until it swallows it. Sleep at that time was not a moment of rest, but an adventure between life and death. Humans tried every means to survive the night. A small fire burning amidst the darkness, animal skins covering the bodies, narrow caves protecting from the winds, and even sleeping next to beasts seeking warmth. Every method carried a story of survival, and every night was a new challenge. In this documentary, we will reveal how our ancestors faced the coldest nights, and how the cold changed the shape of their lives and turned sleep into an unforgettable battle. When the snows covered the earth and the nights became long, as if they never end, man discovered his first secret for survival: fire. A small spark born from a rock against another turned into a flame that saved souls from doom. Around this flame, people gathered, men and women and children, sharing a simple warmth, as if it were a precious treasure. Fire was not just a means for heating, but became the heart of life in winter. At it they eat, and around it they talk, and beside it they sleep, and whenever the flame grew, their sense of safety increased, even if the frost surrounds them from every direction. The glowing embers in the gloom resembled a small, weak sun, but it is the strongest weapon they possess against the cold. In the deep caves, man lit fires at the entrances. The flame repels the winds, and the smoke fills the void, expelling the predatory animals. And with the passage of time, the caves turned into natural homes, their walls of rock, and their ceilings of darkness, and their floor paved with straw and tree leaves. There beside the fire, humans lay down to rest, and made their sleep short, interrupted, as if they do not want to give winter a chance to defeat them. Bodies grew closer more and more. Every person supports the other to feel the heat of his body, so the warmth multiplies and hope increases. The children used to sleep in the middle, surrounded by adults from both sides like seeds planted in the heart of the fire to live until the morning. This simple trick saved thousands of souls and established a habit that many people still practice until today. The fire also created rituals. Before sleep, the adults sit watching its dancing tongues, talking about hunting and about the spirits of the forest and about the sunrise that they are waiting for. And with every story, the fear retreated a little and replaced by a kind of tranquility, for the fire did not grant them warmth only, but granted them hope that the night will pass no matter how long. Thus the small flame turned into a silent hero. Thanks to it, man was able to close his eyes even for a moment, to dream despite the frost, and to defy the coldest winter nights. When winter descends with its cruelty, the poor stone houses did not grant warmth, nor the small windows suffice to repel the winds. The farmers used to sleep amidst the dry straw, which they gathered from the fields. After the harvest season, the straw was not just a cheap bed, but a basic line of defense against the frozen ground. Whenever its layers accumulated under the body, It trapped the heat and protected from the dampness of the cold that leaks from the rough floor. But the straw alone was not enough. People lived with their animals in the same place. In one end of the house, the cows and goats and sheep, and in the other end, the whole family. The heat of the animal bodies used to raise the temperature inside the hut, making the steam rise in the harsh nights and protecting the children from the frost. Some farmers said that the warmth of one cow might equal a small fire in the house. The covers were not of luxurious wool nor of soft fabrics, but of simple fur or of blankets stuffed with straw. The men wear their heavy clothes the same in the night and the day, so they do not lose the layer of heat that they created all day long. The women wrap the children inside cloth sacks, stuffed with straw or coarse wool, and they put them beside them under the same cover. The scene was far from the comfort that we know today. The screaming of animals mixes with the sound of the wind. The smell of dung mixes with the smoke of the small fire in the middle, and people breathe white steam filling the room. And yet amidst this poverty and this filth, the real warmth was formed from the adhesion of bodies and from the closeness of humans and animals together in a joint battle against winter. Every night was a test. If the fire died down or the quantity of straw decreased, everyone felt the sting of death crawling to their bodies. Therefore sleep was always a vigilance of another kind, an eye half closed on the fire, and an ear listening to the murmur of the winds, and a heart awaiting the dawn. In the past ages, not all winter nights were spent inside a house or a hut. Many people were forced to travel across the forests or the plains covered with snow, either for trade or to search for food, or to escape from war. The night on the road was the hardest exam. Where do they sleep amidst a frost that does not show mercy? The travelers were searching for a temporary shelter. Sometimes they find a small cave between the rocks, and sometimes they dig a shallow hole in the snow, covering it with branches and dry leaves to make a flimsy roof. There they light a small fire, wrapping around it with stuck bodies, and sleep ready for any danger. The caravans were using the wagons themselves as places to sleep, spreading straw inside them, putting over it covers of wool and leaving the animals close to grant extra heat. And yet sleep was not deep, but closer to interrupted naps. They wake up at every sound of a wolf or howling of strong winds. In the forest, sleep was a complete adventure. The trees grant something of protection, but their sounds in the storm might increase the horror. The traveler stretches his body on a layer of dry branches to isolate himself from the snow, then wraps himself with a heavy cloak, placing his bag or his shield under his head as a pillow. Often they were leaving one of them awake for guarding while the others sleep for a few hours only. This sleep on the road was not rest but a drain. The bodies exhausted from the long walking find, in those short naps, fuel enough to continue, even if they woke up frozen and their feet stained with snow. And yet every traveler knew that those small naps might make the difference between survival and death. Thus, sleep during travel in winter turned into a survival skill in itself, a skill that combines intelligence and boldness, and between the short surrender to rest and the permanent vigilance to face the dangers of the road, sleep in the ancient winter nights did not pass in silence. The gloom filled with sounds filling the ear and accompanying the body, even while it is drowning in fatigue. Every house, every hut was a theatre for the sound of fire and breaths and animals and wind. Inside, the firewood burns inside the stove. Its small crackles echo like a continuous pulse, a sign that warmth is still present. The straw under the bodies makes a light rustle with every movement, as if the earth itself breathes with them. The breaths of children turn into white steam, mixing with the snoring of adults to make a slow rhythm, reminding everyone that they are alive. Despite the cold, the animals participated in this atmosphere. A cow sighs in the corner, a horse exhales warm breaths, a sheep releases a short sound, cutting the silence. These sounds granted a feeling of safety, as if people did not sleep alone but inside a wider circle of life, protecting them from the cruel outside. As for outside the hut, the scene is different. The winds scream between the cracks of the wooden windows and rotate around the roofs, releasing a long whistle, reminding that the cold surrounds everyone. The snow falls from time to time, making a muffled impact. The dogs bark suddenly from afar, a warning of wolves wandering near the villages. All these sounds reach the ear and awaken the senses even if the eye dozed off. People dealt with these sounds as signs. The crackle of fire means that the night is under control. The barking of dogs sends a signal of the presence of a near danger. The sound of the wind warns of a new storm. In this way, the night noise became a special language, understood by the sleepers and determines for them whether they were safe or in the face of a threat. Sleep amidst these sounds was not calmness nor complete chaos, but a balanced state between the inside and the outside. In the ancient winter nights, people did not take off their clothes before sleep as we do today. The same clothes that they wore in the day were accompanying them to bed. Layers upon layers turn into a wall protecting them from the frost. The heavy clothes made of wool and burlap were covering the body completely. The thick shirts, the long cloaks, the leather belts, and even the shoes sometimes remain on the feet while they are lying on the straw. The goal is one keeping every atom of body heat inside those layers. The rich enjoyed better clothes, blankets stuffed with feathers or furs of rare animals, while the poor relied on worn-out rags or coarse wool pieces that do not protect much from the cold, but they are better than nakedness. The room is more cruel than the outside. Every soldier sleeps in his full clothes, his armor on his body or beside him, and his sword sticking to his hand, as if he is ready to wake up at any moment at the sound of an alarm or attack. Sleep was collective. Dozens of men crowded in one narrow room, their bodies close-breathing air loaded with smoke and sweat. Sounds of snoring and coughing and creaking of armor turn into a noise that does not calm down, but the extreme fatigue makes them drown in naps despite all the disturbance. In the high towers, the guards did not close their eyes for long, wrapping themselves in thick woolen coats, taking turns sleeping and staying up beside the small fires that soon extinguish under the pressure of the wind. Some were dozing, sitting with their backs to the wall, putting their heads on their knees to keep the greatest amount of body heat. Even in the halls of King's Sleep was not much different. It is true that there are heavier covers and bigger beds, but the cold sneaked from every crack in the stone walls, and the icy air was hovering over everyone who sleeps. The only difference is that the farmers slept beside their cows. As for the soldiers and kings, they slept beside their swords. Thus was the night in the castle's exhausted bodies, weapons nearby, and eyes dozing half a nap, as if they do not allow sleep to steal them completely. Sleep in those castles was not rest, but part of the military discipline and a daily exam for man's ability to withstand the cold and war together. In winter, the sea was not more merciful than the land. The sailors who spent weeks on long journeys lived a cruel sleep experience on the deck of wooden ships. The floor always wet, the waves shake everything, and the cold sneaks from between the rough planks, as if it comes from the heart of the sea itself. The sleeping places were narrow wooden beds piled on top of each other like dark boxes. Every sailor crawls to his narrow corner and wraps himself in his coat or in a damp blanket smelling of salt and mold. The closeness to others was providing some warmth, but the noise never calmed down. The creaking of ropes, the crashing of waves, and the sound of the wind whistling in the sails. Sleep was not continuous. The sailors took turns guarding and pulling ropes, so they were short, interrupted naps, where one dozes while he is still wearing his wet shoes and his hands frozen. Some slept sitting, resting their heads on a barrel, and others dozed in open places amidst the winds, because fatigue overcame them. Every moment of sleep on the ship was an adventure. A high wave might pour water on the sleeping bodies, or a rope snaps, causing a clamor that wakes everyone. And despite that, the sailors got used to this situation until they were dozing to the beat of the wave crash, as if the sea itself sings to them, a cruel song that never ends. Thus, sleep in ships was known to have a different taste, a coldness that does not calm down permanent dampness and constant fear that the nap turns into a fall into the sea. When the cold intensified in the villages and cities and houses were no longer enough to protect people, some resorted to what is underground. The stone cellars and the dark corridors turned into unexpected shelters. There, away from the winds and storms, they found a place to put their exhausted bodies. Sleep amidst the damp walls was not comfortable. The ground cruel, the air saturated with the smell of mold and dampness, and darkness wraps every corner. And yet the relative warmth underground saved them from the cruelty of the frost above it. Some families spread the ground with straw, and others sufficed with their coats, while the children sat on their mothers' laps until drowsiness overcame them. The sounds are different here. No wind nor wolves, but drops of water falling from the ceiling, the sound of cautious feet in the gloom, and interrupted breaths of people crowded in a narrow space. Sleep was light. Every movement wakes everyone, but just the ability to close the eyes without the frost stinging them was enough to grant them a feeling of temporary safety. In some cities, even cemeteries were used as shelters. People spread on the ground between the stone graves, believing that the dead at least do not leave them alone in the face of the cold. A strange scene, but realistic, telling how man turned any dark place into a bed when the cruelty of winter besieged him. Sleep underground was not rest, but it was a refuge, supplying them with a few hours of warmth, hours that meant the difference between life and death. In the ancient European cities, not all people owned houses or huts protecting them from the cold. Many of the poor and travelers spent their nights in the heart of the market or at the doors of churches. There, amidst the noise of the day and the smell of rot in the night, they tried to find a place to close their eyes, even for a few hours. The floor was stony, frozen, smelling of rotten food and garbage accumulated from the day. The poor spread sacks of worn-out cloth or slept over abandoned wooden boards, while others stretched directly on the cold tiles, their bodies wrapped in worn-out coats or thin blankets that do not repel the cold. But they grew close together in the corners of the market as if collective sleep is a means to create a lost warmth. The scene in the night was cruel. The barking of stray dogs from afar, the sound of winds crashing against the wooden roofs of the market, and the steam of people's breaths rising in the gloom as if it were a living fog. Some children dozed between the arms of their mothers, their small heads buried inside the covers, while the men sat stuck together on the wooden seats, sharing few blankets. With every crash of the wheels, the sleepers wake up suddenly, then return to a short nap. They did not know deep sleep, but interrupted sleep on the rhythm of the creaking of wood and the sound of horses' feet. The darkness outside the carriage added dread. The winds blowing the snow covering the road, and sometimes the howling of a wolf appears from afar. Therefore some of them were sleeping half awake, placing their hand on their stick or a small dagger in anticipation of any danger. In the inside, the smell of sweat mixes with the smoke emitted from oil lamps, and the air saturated with the breaths of dozens crowded in a narrow space. Despite the cruelty, the carriage provided a kind of protection. Its weak wooden structure separated them from the direct frost and gave them a place to wrap together in. Many said that the real warmth did not come from the blankets nor from the fire, but from the close bodies that made a human cover facing the winds. Sleep in travel carriages was not sleep of rest, but a temporary surrender to fatigue, and with every rising of the dawn the travellers opened their eyes slowly, their bodies stiff from the cold, and their skins full of marks of long sitting. And yet they were thankful that the night passed without freezing, and that the carriage continued its way amidst the storm. Thus ended the ancient night's sleep over straw beside animals inside castles, or in markets, and sometimes over wheels swinging in the snowy roads. Sleep was not rest, but a daily adventure, and every means, no matter how primitive it seemed, was a safety valve connecting man to life amidst the coldest winter nights. When you put your head tonight on your soft pillow and wrap yourself in your warm cover, remember that this calmness that you enjoy was an impossible dream for your ancestors. Remember that the night outside your window still carries the same darkness and the same cold, and that were it not for those walls and lights, your fate would have been like them, a terrifying struggle for survival. Sleep is a blessing. We do not feel its value, except when we imagine how the world was before and now. Tell me in the comments, do you dare to try sleeping one night as they slept? Or do you prefer staying safe in our modern world? Do not forget to click on the like and subscribe button and activate the bell to be the first to hear our upcoming stories, for there is still in our quiver a lot of horror that has not been told yet.